me for episode 10 of Striking from Home is the most winningest player in the history of the PBA with an incredible total of 47 tour titles, 14 PBA 50 tour titles, 34 regional titles, 20 PBA 50 regional titles, and 7 PBA Player of the Year awards from Florida, Walter Ray Williams Jr. How are you today, Walter Ray?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Daniel.
Absolutely, yes. And I really thank you for joining me today. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Very welcome. So I have some questions for you, so we can kind of jump into those. My first question for, what's that?
But don't answer questions. That's
Oh.
okay.
The first question I have for you is, how has life been since the whole shutdown began?
Life's okay, but like a lot of people in the bowling industry, my income has gone way down. So that's a little
Yes.
frustrating. So it's unfortunately, it is what it is. But hopefully things get straightened out and everybody in the bowling industry can start making some money again.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And so, talking about a lot of what this series is about is the PBA League. So you're on the Brooklyn Styles for yet another year. So how does it feel to be a part of that team? What do you think about it this year?
It always feels good to be part of the team bowling PBA league. And Johnny Petraglia, he's one of the guys I grew up watching when I was young. Some of you younger guys might not remember him, but he was definitely one of the top players back in the 70s and even 80s. And then in 1994, he bowled a 300 against me on TV. So I've known Johnny
Yes.
for years, and nice to be part of his team. We got a great team. So hopefully this year we can bowl well and get some breaks. So far, the last few years, doesn't seem like much has gone our way. It's just amazing how pathetic it's been. I mean, it's like not that we bowled bad, but just things didn't happen. So, but that's part of bowling.
Yes, and much like the LAX, you guys are a super stacked, super amazing team that just hasn't seemed to gone your way through the years, as you said. And I think that that is rather sad because I'd love to see you guys in the winner's circle. That would be
Well,
very
thank you.
cool.
So would we.
Yes. So what are your thoughts on the addition of the brand new two women's teams, the Miami Waves and the Phoenix Fury, to the PBA League?
It's interesting. Obviously, the ladies are great bowlers. It's just kind of interesting because most of them aren't PBA members. So it's just kind of interesting that they reached out to the ladies organization to add them. Some people complain that they could have added a senior team, even though there are several senior bowlers on the teams. But
Correct.
it is what it is, and PBA gets to make the decisions on all that. So.
Yes, and like in the past, we've seen people like Danielle McEwen and Kelly Kulik be part of teams, and I think that it's very interesting and very good to see them as part of teams, and now they've got their own full teams.
Yeah, and they're not going to be easy teams to beat. They're definitely capable bowlers, and if things go their way, you never know.
Yes, I would certainly agree. They do not seem like pushovers at all in the PBA league. I've even had a couple of guys say that they are a little nervous about bowling against women because they are the top 10 on the PWBA from last year.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I noticed that they drew the top 10 players on the point list instead of going outside it, like getting a Kelly or somebody else that is a really strong player, but maybe last year didn't perform maybe as well or didn't play as many tournaments. I don't know why she wasn't in the top 10 or not. She's a great player and has been for a long time. Obviously, winning the PBA Tournament of Champions, that's an unbelievable feat what she did there.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's kind of talk about you've gotten into two-handed bowling through the past few years. So, what is one key thing that helped you a lot whenever you were getting into two-handed bowling?
Well, I kind of learned how to do that probably about 10, 11, 12 years ago. I really couldn't say exactly when, but
Okay.
over the years, my rev rate stayed the same, and everybody else's rev rate coming out on tour just kept going higher and higher and higher. And watching these young guys out on tour and seeing how much they hook the ball and the way the lanes break down, and like I just don't have much of a chance when that happens. Sometimes I do, but unfortunately the power and the angles that they can create are something I just can't do. So I kind of fooled around with it. It wasn't necessarily that I was going to go bowl that way, but it was just something to try. And I was able to do it without falling over. And so I would do it occasionally, usually at the end of a tournament when I wasn't doing very well. So it didn't really matter. But a couple of years ago, and every time I go out on tour, I say, I really need to learn how to do this. I really need to learn how to do this. And I wasn't really putting any effort into it. A couple of years ago, I decided to put a little more effort into it and kind of worked on it a little bit. I still don't put the effort into it that I should to be as good as these guys are on tour, but I'm decent at it. Bowling against the guys on the senior tour probably has a lot more, it comes into play a lot better, because even when I bowl on the regular tour, which I probably won't be doing a whole lot more, even when I go two-handed against those guys, they still outhook me, and they throw it 2 to 3 miles an hour harder than I do. So that kind of tells you, where I'm sitting on a rev rate and speed and stuff, and I just don't carry, the off hits as well. And the other thing, I'm not as accurate. I need to be way more accurate than I am, and that's just, that comes with a lot more practice and stuff. I'm getting decent at it, but I've had some good moments doing it, but it definitely, I honestly, I need to put more time into it, and unfortunately, I just don't have the I don't know, the desire to put the extra time into it right now. And unfortunately right now it's like, well, the season's been canceled, and, my next big event basically is the PBA League, and hopefully that doesn't get delayed or pushed back or whatever. And, that's the end of September. And like, well, maybe if I really worked on it every day, maybe I could get my two-handed game pretty decent, but then it's like, I gotta get up. It's unfortunately, I don't have a bowling lane in my house, and if I did, it's the only time I've ever thought that, it'd be kind of cool to have one, or even a stub lane or something like that, that I could run something like that, because the bowling center is 20 minutes away, and so it's a little bit of a time effort, a little bit more of a commitment, and it just the commitment needs to be a little higher for me, and I know that's part of the case. I do have a horseshoe court out backyard, and I do that. I've been doing that a lot. Been having kind of fun with that. I should say some fun, because I get a bit frustrated, because I used to be really, 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 really good, and now I'm just really good. And people don't understand that. They think, "Wow, you're really, really good." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I'm good, but I used to be way better. And it's not because of my age. I mean, the age has a little bit to do with it, but it's just very frustrating that I can't, I get it going for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I start messing up, and that just frustrates me. So, but the two-handed thing is kind of a novel thing. I enjoy doing it. I know some people don't like it, but you know what? To me, it's part of bowling. It's not like you're using a mechanical device to throw the ball. It's all you. And if you want to be a true purist, back in the early days of bowling, they had no holes in the ball, and you palmed it and threw it. So. There's been a lot of evolutions in the game of bowling over the years, so it's just one more evolution. And if it didn't work, guys wouldn't do it, and there's a reason why it does work, and there's a reason why it's not such a horrible thing to do. However, lane conditions being as easy as they are in the house conditions, I think that's a big part of it. If the lane conditions were tough like they were 40 years ago, I don't think you'd see, probably 50 years ago, you probably wouldn't see near as much of that going on, because it takes advantage of the differences in friction. So, but you still got to learn to control it. And the one thing I think a lot of people don't realize, these guys on tour are really, really good. They don't just have a lot of power, they have a lot of accuracy to go with it. And I have all the respect in the world for these guys. It's just, everybody thinks it's just, stand left, throw right, and you're good to go. But there's a lot more to it than that. And I think that probably helps me to be a tiny bit more competitive when I bowl two-handed, because I see all these young kids. I just bowled a tournament this last weekend, and I crossed with this kid who bowls two-handed, throws a ball way better than I do two-handed. And I actually probably scored better than he did. Now, I bowled half the games one-handed and half the games two-handed, but I didn't really score any better one-handed. I probably scored better two-handed. But it was kind of, I think, partly because I have a little bit of extra, knowledge, experience from bowling, and not just, all the years, bowling one-handed, that it gives me a little bit of insight as to what's going on with the lane and stuff. But it still comes down to repeating shots, and that's the biggest part of it. So.
Absolutely. And I know that you brought up horseshoes a little bit while you were answering that question. So, my last question for you is, how did you get so good at horseshoe pitching?
That's something my dad did. He was friends with a gentleman who was a 1960 world champion, and they were friends. And I honestly can't remember why, but when I was a little kid, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to pitch horseshoes.
Hmm.
I think they used to do exhibitions where the world champion was pitching at my dad. You know, my dad was like in the way and, you know, straddling the stake, sitting in front of it, and that kind of stuff. And I think that I must have saw that at an early age. I don't remember that, but that must have ingrained in my head that that's something I wanted to do. And I remember when I was like 7, 8 years old, that's what I wanted to do. My dad actually didn't teach me how to pitch horseshoes until I was 9. And when he did, I went out and practiced in the backyard every single day that I could. And within a year, I got very, very good. When I was 10, I finished second at the Junior World
Wow.
Championships, which is a 17 and under division. And so I'm playing against kids 14, 15, 16 years old. And I was only 10. And I finished second at the World Tournament. And I also, in the qualifying round, I had 45 ringers out of 50 shoes, which is where I got my nickname Deadeye. So people think I got it from bowling. I actually got it from playing horseshoes. I ended up winning the Junior World Championship the next year when I was 11. I was the youngest to win it, and I broke the record for the high average at the time. And then I broke it again the next year, and I ended up winning the Junior Championships 3 times and won the Men's Championship 6 times. Now, unfortunately for me, it has been many, many years since I've won the World Tournament. Last time I won was 1994, so that's 25, 26 years ago. And that's a little kind of a frustration because at one time I thought I would be the best horseshoe pitcher ever. When I started bowling on tour, the idea of being one of the best bowlers ever didn't really enter my mind because at that time I knew there were several guys in Southern California where I was living at the time that were better than I was bowling. And so it was I thought this would be kind of cool if I could make a living doing this. You know, I've been very competitive my whole life, obviously playing horseshoes and stuff. And it was kind of cool that I could do that. And I was doing pretty well in tournaments in Southern California and went out on tour. And fortunately made more money than I spent and managed to stay on tour and got better and better. And pretty soon, you know, I'm a player of the year and that kind of stuff and just kept going. And it, it definitely playing a game for a living is just how lucky can you be?
That is very true. So now for the next segment, I have a mini game planned for you that we're going to play. So how it works is I'm going to ask you 5 Brooklyn Styles related multiple choice trivia questions. And if you
Okay.
answer correctly, you get 1 point per correct answer. And if you answer incorrectly, you get 0. So are you ready?
We'll see. Yeah.
Alrighty, so and let me tell you too as well. In last place right now is Sean Rash, tied with Kyle Sherman with 0. And in first, yes, and in first, Stuart Williams has 5 out of 5 for
Oh,
his
good to see you.
LAX. Yes. So, alrighty. So number 1 is, who was the original celebrity owner of the Brooklyn Styles in 2013? Was it A, Jesse Williams, B, Kevin Hart, C, Terrell Owens, or D, Billie Jean King?
Hey.
It was. You're correct. That's 1 point for Walter Ray so far. Very good. Alrighty. So, number 2. What was the first ever year that a PBA Tour event was held in the state of New York? Was it A, 1962, B, 1959, C, 1963, or D, 1966?
I'm going to go with 59, and I want to say might have been the first tournament. No, because that might have been Paramus. Uh, God, I'm going to go with 59 anyway. I
That
know
is
they had.
correct. It was 1959. It was not the first ever tournament, I believe,
Right.
but it was in 1959, the inaugural season.
Yeah, and I think they only had 3 tournaments that season.
Yes, yeah, they had a very short number. All right, so number 3. So you're doing good so far. You got 2 points out of 2 so far. So number 3, which of the following was invented in Brooklyn, New York? Was it A, the credit card, B, the corn dog, C, the submarine sandwich, or D, contact lenses?
Wow.
Getting a
Hmm.
little more difficult here.
That's that. I mean, I got no idea. I'm gonna go with the corn dog.
Unfortunately, it was not the corn dog. Although the hot dog was invented in the state of New York, no, the credit card was actually invented in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay,
Very interesting.
that is interesting.
It's okay. You still got two so far. So number four, which of the following bowlers was known for their crazy styles throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s? Was it A, Earl Anthony, B, George Pappas, C, Mike Albee, or D, Guppy Troop?
Well, those four you got Guppy Troop.
That's correct. Absolutely. It was Guppy Troop. He was known for his outrageous and very outgoing styles, which seems to have translated to his son as well, Kyle, for sure.
Yeah, his son. Well, his son, obviously growing up around his dad and watching his dad bowl a little bit, and I think that was a little bit of an influence. And I think Kyle's got a very good respect for how to play, animate himself and play with the crowd and stuff. And he does a great job with that. I mean, the one thing about being a sports athlete like we are, there's more to it than just knocking pins down. You also got to keep your fans entertained. And I'm not as outgoing as a Kyle or Guppy, but I have my moments.
Absolutely. So that gives you 3 points so far going into our final question. So you got a chance to tie AJ Johnson for second place with 4 out of 5. So, number 5, which of the following was the first ever PBA Tour champion that was from Brooklyn, New York? Is it A, Brad Angelo, B, Doug Kent, C, Johnny Petraglia, or D, Dick Batista?
Well, I know the first two aren't from Brooklyn, so and I don't know where Dick's from. I know Johnny won in this like 1965, but I gotta think that somebody won before him from Brooklyn, so I'm gonna go with Dick.
It was Johnny Petraglia, the 1966 Fort Smith Open.
Oh, was it
Yes.
66? I was thinking 65. That must have been when he went on tour in 1965. But well, that's interesting. I just knowing that it's a big bowling area and there's a lot of great bowlers from that area. I would just thought that there was somebody else, but I'm not really familiar with Dick. Batista?
Batista, yep.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. I don't know where he's from, or even if he won a title. But
Yes, I believe he. I was doing research earlier on this. I believe he won in the early 70s, and he is from New York. So
Oh, okay. Well,
yes, all four of those.
So Johnny beat him by the year too. So I'm just nothing against Johnny because obviously a great player, but I thought there might have been somebody else that might have beat him to it, but I know the other two are from upstate New York, so and way beyond time wise.
Yes. So
it might be old for somebody like as young as you, but both younger than I am. So
yes. So 3 out of 5 points on today's show for Walter Ray Williams Jr. So not bad at all. That puts you in third place. Tied with Sean Maldonado. So I want to say once again, thank you so much to Walter Ray Williams Jr. for joining me on episode 10 of Striking from Home. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell the fans, Walter Ray?
No, everybody out there watching, enjoy whatever it is you're doing and try to stay safe, and hopefully your lanes are open, and when they do, please be safe.
Yes. We all wish you all the best watching, and subscribe below and leave a like as well. So thanks again to Walter Ray for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure, and I really hope that you have a good day, sir.
Thank you.